Oh, Microsoft, how the mighty have fallen.
We're starting to see some very just damaging things happening to Windows, especially on the back end.
Picture this. The world's biggest laptop company, the one that ships more computers than almost anyone on the planet, gets a phone call from Microsoft. And Microsoft says, "We'll give you a 40% discount. Take it." And Lenovo says no, not because the money wasn't real, not because there was a better deal somewhere else. They said no because even with a 40% discount, Windows was still too expensive to keep. Let that sink in for a second, because that single moment tells you everything about what's quietly falling apart inside the Windows empire, and why the consequences for you, for me, for anyone who's ever bought a laptop are going to be enormous. In this video, we're going to follow the money. We're going to find out exactly why the biggest laptop makers on earth are walking away from Windows and what they're replacing it with. And by the time we're done, you're going to see your computer in a completely different way. But first, I need to show you something that most people have never stopped to think about. Every single laptop you've ever bought came with Windows already on it. You didn't pick it. You didn't ask for it. You didn't compare it against anything else. You opened the box, turned it on, and there it was. Windows, waiting for you. That has been Microsoft's greatest business strategy for over 35 years. Not making the best software, not winning customers over, just making sure their software was the only thing you would ever see from the moment you powered on. And that strategy, that invisible, automatic, never questioned strategy, is breaking down right now in real time. Stay with me, because what's happening inside this industry is way more interesting than anyone's telling you. Let me show you something the laptop industry doesn't advertise. When HP or Lenovo builds a budget laptop and sells it to you for $399, before they pay for a single screen, a single battery, a single keyboard, they already owe Microsoft money. How much? Between $50 and $80 per machine. That's the Windows license fee every manufacturer has to pay just for the right to put Windows on a laptop. On a $399 computer, that's already 15 to 20% of the entire retail price. Gone. Before the thing is even built. But here's where it gets worse. Windows 11 didn't just come with a price tag, it came with a shopping list. Microsoft told every manufacturer, if you want to ship Windows 11, your machines need to meet our hardware requirements. You need a TPM 2.0 security chip. You need a newer processor. You need faster storage. You need at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, each one of those things sounds small, a security chip here, a memory upgrade there, but on a budget laptop where every dollar is already accounted for, those forced upgrades add another $40 to $55 in manufacturing costs per unit. So now you're building a $399 laptop, and you've already handed over more than $100 before you've made a single cent of profit. The margin left over is almost nothing, and then, just when you think it can't get any tighter, the support calls start coming in. This is the part nobody talks about. When Windows breaks something, and Windows breaks things constantly, the customer doesn't call Microsoft. They call the manufacturer. They call HP, they call it Lenovo, they call Dell. A Windows update comes through overnight and suddenly the printer doesn't work. The laptop slows down. An app that worked fine yesterday crashes today. Who gets blamed? Not Microsoft. The company whose logo is on the lid. Every one of those support calls costs money to resolve, and the number of those calls is enormous because Windows generates more customer complaints per device than any other part of the laptop. But here's the thing I really need you to hold on to, because this is the open question that's going to drive the rest of this video. If Windows is costing manufacturers this much money, why are they still shipping it? Or more precisely, were they still shipping it? Because the answer to that question is where everything gets really interesting. Between January and June of 2024, Lenovo ran a quiet experiment. They didn't announce it. They didn't make a big press release. They just sold 50,000 laptops through their direct website, and instead of putting Windows on them, they put Linux. If you don't know what Linux is, here's the simplest way to think about it. It's a free operating system. No license fee, no hardware mandates, no mandatory bloatware. It's the thing that runs most of the internet servers, most of the world's supercomputers, and it's been quietly sitting in the background of the tech world for decades. Lenovo wanted to answer one question. Would real customers buy it? And would they keep it? The results came back, and they were so surprising that they changed Lenovo's entire strategy overnight. Return rates on Windows 11 laptops were running at 11.4%. That means roughly 1 in every 9 laptops came back. Customers were returning machines, not because the hardware was broken, but because the experience was frustrating enough that they gave up and sent it back. Each one of those returns cost Lenovo around $75 in processing, restocking, and reselling at a discount. On the Linux laptops, return rates dropped to 2.1%. Support calls fell by 73%. 87% of Linux buyers rated performance as excellent or good. Only 64% of Windows 11 buyers said the same, on identical hardware. The customers thought Lenovo had built a better laptop. What Lenovo had actually done was remove Windows. So after seeing those numbers, Lenovo's CEO made a decision that would have sounded absolutely insane 5 years ago. Starting in Q2 of 2025, Linux would be the default operating system on 60% of Lenovo's consumer laptop lineup. Windows would still be available, but customers would have to specifically ask for it and pay extra. Windows, the operating system that shipped as the automatic default on virtually every non-Apple computer for 3 decades, was just demoted to a premium add-on by the world's biggest PC maker. And Microsoft's response? They called Lenovo. They offered a 40% discount on Windows licenses. They dropped the price from $65 down to $39 per unit. Lenovo turned them down, because even at $39, Windows still generates more returns, more support calls, more hardware inflation, more customer dissatisfaction than free Linux. A discounted bad deal is still a bad deal. Now, here's where I need you to pay attention, because what happened next is the thing that's going to reshape the entire PC industry, and most people still haven't connected the dots. Lenovo didn't move alone. That was the plan. Think about it from a business perspective for a second. If you're a laptop manufacturer and you decide to move away from Windows, Microsoft can retaliate. They can cut your marketing funds. They can give preferential treatment to your competitors. They can make licensing painful enough that you regret it. But if multiple manufacturers move within months of each other, Microsoft's leverage disappears entirely. You can't punish the whole PC industry without destroying your own distribution network. So here's what the calendar actually looks like. ASUS announced that starting Q1 2026, 85% of its PC lineup will ship with Linux pre-installed. Not some obscure version, Ubuntu and Fedora, 2 of the most polished, user-friendly Linux distributions available today. Dell has been running a quiet Ubuntu pilot on their Inspire Online since March 2024. HP, the second largest PC manufacturer on the planet, a company that ships 57 million computers a year, has been increasing Linux shipments steadily and has already started selling laptops preloaded with Ubuntu Linux and even Pop! OS, a distribution specifically designed to be as easy as Windows. These companies aren't making ideological statements. They're hardware companies making business decisions, but the timing is coordinated enough to be unmistakable. They are moving together deliberately, and the window for Microsoft to stop it is closing. Now, before we get to what this actually means for Windows and for you personally, I want to pull back the camera for a second and show you something bigger. Because Lenovo's decision didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened at the worst possible moment for Microsoft. And when you understand the timing, the whole picture snaps into focus. Now here's where the timing gets brutal for Microsoft. October 14th, 2025. Windows 10 reaches end of life. Microsoft stops releasing security updates for it, and their message to hundreds of millions of users is simple. Upgrade to Windows 11 or you're on your own. There's just one problem. Windows 11 doesn't run on older hardware. If your laptop is from 2018 or 2019, even if it works perfectly, even if it does everything you need, it might be officially incompatible. Microsoft was essentially telling a huge chunk of the world, buy a new computer. And here's what those people actually did. Stat counter data from late 2025 shows Linux desktop share crossing measurable new thresholds in Germany, Brazil, and India, precisely during those months. That is not a coincidence. That is cause and effect playing out on a global scale. Linux desktop share crossed 4% globally in 2024. 2 years earlier, it was 2%. It doubled. And the number that really tells the whole story, an estimated 400 million people are still running the unsupported, unprotected Windows 10 because they looked at Windows 11 and decided a known security risk was better than dealing with it. When 400 million people choose a known security risk over your new product, that is not a marketing problem. That is a product problem. So what exactly did Microsoft do to Windows 11 that made so many people so frustrated? Let's walk through this quickly because the pattern is important. Setup. You can't finish installing Windows 11 without signing in with a Microsoft account. No local account option, not without technical workarounds most people don't know about. Your computer, which you paid for, now requires Microsoft's permission to turn on. Then the ads arrived. Inside the operating system itself, in the Start menu, on the lock screen, in File Explorer, an operating system serving you advertisements. Then Copilot, Microsoft's AI assistant, baked directly into the system whether you wanted it or not. Then Recall, the feature that would take a screenshot of everything you do on your PC every few seconds and store it for AI analysis. Security researchers immediately found the data wasn't properly encrypted. Microsoft pulled it before launch. It came back later as opt-in. The trust didn't come back with it, and here's the signal that matters most. Stack Overflow's annual developer survey, one of the clearest leading indicators of where the industry is heading, now shows Windows usage among professional developers below 40% and falling. Developers are choosing Mac and Linux, and developers build the software that makes platforms valuable. When they leave, the software pipeline eventually follows. Governments are reading the same signals. Germany, France, South Korea, all moving portions of their public infrastructure to Linux. Not for ideology, because Windows 11 collects a lot of data, and foreign governments aren't comfortable with sensitive information flowing to American servers. The European Commission has opened formal GDPR inquiries into Windows 11's data practices. These aren't fringe concerns anymore. They're national policy decisions. So, while all of this is happening to Windows on the ground level, what is Microsoft actually doing about it? January 29th, 2026. Microsoft loses nearly $400 billion in market capitalization in a single day. Not a scandal, not a product failure. Investors looked at one thing. Microsoft has been spending extraordinary amounts on artificial intelligence, and the returns aren't there yet. $37.5 billion on AI infrastructure in just 3 months, up 66% from the year before. And their flagship AI product, the Copilot, had roughly 15 million active users out of hundreds of millions of Office users. About 3 to 5% adoption on a product that cost more to build than most Fortune 500 companies are worth entirely. Satya Nadella has described Windows as becoming an agentic operating system, one that acts on your behalf, anticipates your needs, operates autonomously. For regular consumers, that sounds interesting. For enterprise customers managing thousands of machines, an operating system that acts unpredictably on its own is not a feature. It's a liability. And here's the thing. At exactly the moment Microsoft is asking the world to trust it with this vision of autonomous AI computing, it's losing the default position it held for 35 years. That is not a small thing, and it gets even more complicated when you look at what's happening on the AI side of the battlefield, because there's a competitor that just changed the entire game overnight. While Microsoft was doubling down on AI through OpenAI, Google dropped Gemini 3, and the entire industry felt it immediately. On the benchmark designed to test PhD-level reasoning, most models struggled to crack 20%. Gemini 3 scored 37.5% and pushed that to 41% with its enhanced reasoning mode. It topped the global AI leaderboard in direct head-to-head comparisons against every other model. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, the company Microsoft invested $13 billion into, sent an internal memo to his entire staff acknowledging that Google was doing excellent work and that they needed to catch up. The company that started the modern AI race just told its own employees it's behind. And Google's position here is broader than just AI scores. Google makes Chrome OS. Google backs Android, the most widely used operating system on the planet. Google has deep existing relationships with the same hardware manufacturers, HP, Lenovo, ASUS, Dell, who are now diversifying away from Windows. Microsoft built its dominance on one thing, the absence of a credible alternative. That alternative now exists. Multiple alternatives exist, and the companies that build the hardware have already done the math. Let's bring this back to ground level. If you browse the web, write documents, send emails, join video calls, all of that works just as well on a modern Linux distribution as it does on Windows, often faster, without forced updates that slow things down, without ads inside the interface, without signing into Microsoft servers before you can use your own computer. The reason most people have never thought about this is the same reason nobody questioned the default for 30 years. Windows was just already there. That's changing. The next time you shop for a laptop, whether that's next year or in 3 years, there is a very real chance the default in front of you won't be Windows. It might be Linux, already set up, already polished, already configured so you'd never know the difference unless someone told you. And if that happens, it will be the biggest shift in consumer computing since the smartphone. There's one thread we haven't fully pulled yet, though, and it's the one that's going to define the next 5 years. As Microsoft pushes Windows deeper into AI territory, the hardware manufacturers are moving in the opposite direction. More local processing, less cloud dependency, systems that don't need to phone home to function. That tension between Microsoft's vision and where the hardware is going, we're covering that in depth in the next video. Let's put the whole picture together. Microsoft's dominance was never built on loyalty. It was built on the default. When you're already there before anyone makes a choice, you don't need to compete. You just need to exist. That default is being dismantled by the very companies that maintained it for 35 years. Lenovo removing Windows cut returns by over 80% and support calls by nearly 3/4. ASUS is shifting 85% of its lineup to Linux. HP is already shipping Linux laptops to real consumers. Dell is testing in the background. Windows 11 sits at 31% adoption, far below Microsoft's own targets, while 400 million people choose unsupported software rather than deal with it. And Microsoft is burning tens of billions on an AI vision its customers haven't asked for while losing $400 billion in market cap in a single day. The most important thing to understand is this. If Microsoft's decline in the PC market continues, it won't look like a collapse. It will look like a slow fade, the way physical media faded, the way cable TV is fading. Not a dramatic moment, just a quiet, steady erosion until one day the default is gone. The companies that thrive in what comes next won't be the ones who fought hardest to protect the old default. They'll be the ones who built something people genuinely choose. For the first time in 35 years, that question, what operating system belongs on your laptop, is actually open. And that is a genuinely remarkable thing. If this kind of analysis is what you're here for, you know what to do. The AI battle, what Google's Gemini 3 actually means, how OpenAI responds, and who's really positioned to win the next decade of computing, that video is already waiting for you. The game is just getting started.